What if the biggest lie you've ever known is this? That you're only allowed to be one thing in this life. That if life gives you a bad hand, you just sit down and you accept it. That if you lose your title, your shine, your people, you stay there, quiet and finished. I believed that for a while, and if you met me back then, you'd have believed it too. And if you're sitting there wondering, who the heck is this Eddy Kimani guy? Fair enough, not everybody here grew up glued to a TV or a radio. Sindio? Once upon a time, I was that familiar face and voice here in Kenya, a TV anchor, a radio presenter, a sports announcer. I've stood on big stages, read news on air, on the airwaves, shouted sports scores, acted in TV, film, TV commercials. Some of you remember, some of you don't. It's okay. But do you know what? Brands do fail, titles disappear, and life moves on. And when the real life knocks, it does not care that you were once known. If my past had the final word, you wouldn't be seeing me here tonight. If my mistakes got the last vote, the last say, my name and picture would not be on that engaged poster. Here's what life taught me to understand. I was never built for just one version of myself. So let's go back to 2017. I've just finished a role setting up and running the communications department for Nakuru's first county governor. Now, I wanted back into media, the place that once made me me. I went for a screen test at a local TV station here in Nairobi, the same kind of room that I once owned. I knew the camera, I knew the lights, I knew the auto cue, I knew how to use it. I had something to say. I did the screen test and walked out thinking, hey, Eddy, this may be just your next chapter. A few days later, the feedback came. It was a phone call, and the person on the other end said, Eddy, you're too old to be back on TV. Now, that cracked something inside me. It felt like somebody just punched me right in the gut. A gut that was already bleeding internally, bleeding from disappointment, rejection, brokenness. The punch basically added acid to injury. And for a while, I believed it. I believed that maybe Eddy was finished. Maybe this was it. You know, you're now washed up and now you are irrelevant. But somewhere in that bruise, a new thought took root. When somebody tells you you're too old, you're too late, you're too much, what they really mean is this: you have outgrown their imagination, not yours. And it is during this season, thank you, I stood on this stage in 2019, same spotlight, different Eddy Kimani. I was desperately clinging onto the hope that some doors would stay open for people like me, that there were seats permanently reserved, and all I needed to do was what? Find them and occupy them. Then life laughed, it laughed, until its sides hurt. January 2020, after nearly 3 years jobless, I landed a job at a marketing firm in Nairobi here. Wow, a breath of fresh hope, you know. Then COVID checked in, and it did a number. You know, later on I'll tell you how COVID, despite how it ravaged us globally, I'll tell you why it was a blessing for me through this journey. So bookmark that thought. Sawa. Understandably, the company had to do what they had to do. 2 months in, they activated the last in, first out policy. I got my letter, packed my things, and I went back where? To zero. Same year, my marriage cracked again. Nairobi felt too small for my shame. I knew I had to make bigger, harder, and very painful decisions. I crashed in a friend's empty servant's quarter. And by the way, that friend, a very dear friend, is actually here tonight with us. You know yourself. Asante sana ndugu. So one mattress, 4 walls, and one voice in my head asking myself a question. Eddy, is this how the story ends? Nobody was coming. The old Eddy was not coming to rescue me. He had served his time. On to October 2020, broke, lost, and depression heavy. I made what looked like the dumbest mistake move in my life. I decided Nairobi will not determine my next step, and I decided I will move to Mombasa. So I called a friend. He hosted me while I scoped coast. I did my recce for 3 days, scared, broke, praying that I was not just burying myself deeper. But the last day, the third day, I was convinced I'm here, I'm moving here to Mombasa. Problem was this, no house yet. I was ready to go back to Nairobi. Mission half done. Then out of the blue, a friend from a men's WhatsApp group called me. He also lived in Mombasa, and he was just checking on me. I told him my plan, we both laughed, we caught up. And then he told me, Eddy, I just moved out of my house, and it's empty. You know, sometimes life conspires for you in ways that you cannot even understand. You can't even explain, isn't it? He took me to the house, I met the caretaker, and we hit it off. He booked it for me. No deposit, no tricks, just trust. December came, I packed my shame, my little belongings, my doubt, and I left for Mombasa. Now, Mombasa was not a beach holiday for me. Let me kill that fantasy right now. Mombasa humbled me. I had to change my perspective from Mombasa being this holiday destination and remember that this will now be my home where I will live and find a way to survive and live in. So I did, step by step. I poured myself into art. The backstory, it started during COVID when life showed us so much thunder. And many of us got caught up in that introspection. It forced us to dig deep in ourselves. And that's when I reconnected with a childhood passion which I had put aside, art. At first, it was just a way of keeping busy and feel like myself again. But as I kept going, I began discovering new ways to express the love for art. And that's when I stumbled upon an art called bonsai art, tree art sculpting. Now, bonsai trees are miniature trees, originally shaped and cultured by the Chinese and the Japanese. It's a long and a delicate process to grow them. Some of them, to fully grow, can take up to 60 to 70 years. But the artist I was learning from online had a clever way work around it. He did not want to wait all those years for the bonsai to grow. So he made his own form from wire, realistic, lasting, no watering needed. And I thought that was brilliant. That's where it all began for me. And all along, I taught myself how to shape metal wire. I experimented with wood, with plaster, with anything else that my hands could bend or even find. I remember my first wire tree. It was rough, clumsy, cuts on my fingers from twisting stubborn metal wire for hours. I didn't have fancy tools, just a pair of pliers and gloves, and the willingness to teach myself. The trees never looked good like the pictures in my head, but they slowly became therapy for me. They did not care about my lost titles or my empty pockets. They did not judge me. They just stood there, stubborn, imperfect, just like me. Working that wire forced me to let go pride and ego. I had to trade applause for silence, for studio lights, for dusty hands. I had to let go of the polished version of Eddy that I used to be. But in that shift, I found stillness, focus, and the quiet pride of creating something with my own hands. Those wire trees taught me how to hold chaos gently and also to reshape me into something beautiful. Eventually, I built myself a little balcony workshop at home. It became my sanctuary, where that quiet transformation continued. Inside that small sanctuary, I learned how to choose what deserved my energy and what did not. The noise of regret, it all stayed outside my house. Mombasa also became a sanctuary. I made friends who welcomed me with open arms, the ones who saw me rebuilding, and they did not laugh at me. Some of those friendships are still blooming today because I was honest enough to show up half-fixed, just as Eddy. It was also in Mombasa where I got my first lead role in a TV series. Maybe some of you have watched it, Sanura. It took us all the way to Lamu, where we lived and filmed for over a year, amongst other TV productions, which I was a part of in Mombasa. In a way, the move was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to get out of my comfort zone and face new horizons with grit, confidence, and a little sprinkle of audacity of hope. But don't get me wrong, Mombasa has sweet distractions, cheap escapes, nice-smelling traps that will drain you dry. Some days, they nearly won, but most days I kept on choosing my new path. I took my scars and turned them outwards. I trained as a mental health advocate and a trainer because it was selfish to keep holding all these hard-learned lessons. It was selfish of me through the lived experience I had. I also founded Brother Man Shave and Talk Initiative, using barbershops as safe spaces for men to talk, training barbers to spot signs, to listen to other men and care, but most importantly, to make them mental health champions, an initiative that had been on a break, but I'm scaling it up this year. So here's my truth. Stay down if you have to, but do not unpack. When your life drops you, lie there if you have to, but when you stand up different, stand up weird. Being limitless is not just about ourselves, by the way. It's also how we show up for each other. Sometimes it's not about the big gestures, but the small things. Answering a call, giving a clear update, keeping your word. If somebody reaches out, pick up that call. If you're busy, let them know you'll call back and follow through. You might be their last bit of hope that day. Often, they don't need solutions, just somebody who will listen without judgment. And it's not always about emotional support. Sometimes it's work-related, a callback, a yes or a no, a follow-up for something. That clarity, however small, might be the last thread that somebody is holding on to that week. My name is Eddy Kimani. I'm not one thing, and I'm not done. I am limitless. And so are you. Asante. Asante sana. Thank you. Asante.